The Quiet Ones. This is not a story about secrets. It is a chronicle of devastating visibility, the terror of seeing too much. Hanna Cole constructed her life around absolute control, insulating herself behind thick walls, rigid routine, and the silence of the archived dead. She believed her existence was unassailable, but across the street, a window opened onto a perfect facade, masking a cold, dangerous game of domesticity. The moment Hanna began her obsession, she unknowingly sealed her own fate. This is the chilling, slow descent into acute paranoia. This is the realization that the only thing more terrifying than being completely alone is discovering you never, ever were. Chapter 1. The View from Unit 4B. Hanna Cole had lived in Unit 4B for 3 years, long enough to memorize every crack in the plaster and every echo of the hallway pipes. The building wasn't particularly old, but it carried a worn charm, the kind that made everything sound closer than it was. She liked that. In a strange way, the closeness felt safe. Her life was predictable. She woke at 6, drank black coffee, walked to the data archives where she spent her days cataloging digitized municipal records, then returned home to microwave dinners and silence. Routine, she always believed, kept the mind from wandering into dangerous places. But lately, her mind wandered anyway. Not randomly, not aimlessly. It wandered toward the window. Across the courtyard stood Unit 5C, on the parallel wing of the complex. Its windows faced hers directly, separated by only 30 feet of open air and a grid of dim courtyard lights. People rarely closed their curtains fully in the building. Hanna didn't either. Curtains made her feel trapped. From Unit 5C, she could see the couple. The woman appeared first, usually around 7. She had shoulder-length dark hair and a way of moving that made her seem perpetually tired. Some nights she cooked, some nights she just stood at the window staring out, her hand resting on the glass like she wanted to push the whole world away. Then came the man. Always later, always louder. He moved through the apartment like someone who believed every room belonged to him and him alone. His shoulders were broad, his posture rigid, his presence almost too solid for such a small space. Hanna didn't know their names, but she'd begun giving them private titles in her mind: the Quiet One and the Loud One. She told herself she watched because the window was in her line of sight while she worked on her laptop. Nothing more, nothing strange. People were curious by nature. But curiosity didn't explain why she remembered the time the woman closed the bedroom door softly, as if afraid to disturb something inside. Or why she remembered the time the man sat alone in the kitchen for almost an hour without moving, staring at his hands like they had betrayed him. It certainly didn't explain why Hanna felt a cold ripple of recognition every time the woman brushed her hair behind her ear in a way that reminded her of someone she once knew, someone she preferred not to think about. It was a Wednesday evening, a quiet one even by her building standards, when Hanna noticed the first anomaly. She had just settled at her kitchen table, her laptop open, her dinner of reheated noodles cooling beside her. She glanced at the window out of habit more than intention. Then she froze. The couple's apartment was dark, except for a small lamp on the far table. The man stood near the window, his face obscured by the reflection of the courtyard lights. He wasn't moving. He was facing her. It wasn't unusual for him to look out the window. What was unusual was the feeling she got. A small pressure at the back of her skull, a tightening in her chest. It felt like he wasn't looking out the window, but through it. At her. A trick of the light, she thought. He can't see you. Your lights are brighter. He's just staring into his own reflection. Even so, she drew her curtains 2 inches closer. That night, as she lay in bed, a soft knocking sound broke the stillness. It was faint, almost too faint to be real. 3 short taps against her door. She sat up. Tap, tap, tap. A rational person might have opened the door, or called out, or turned on the hallway lights. Hanna did none of those things. She stayed perfectly still, breaths shallow, listening. When the knocks didn't return, she slid out of bed and approached the peephole. The hallway was empty, but when she opened the door, a small object rested on the floor. A folded piece of paper. No markings, no envelope, plain. Her fingers hesitated above it. Then curiosity won. She unfolded it. Only 3 words were written inside, in thin, neat handwriting. Are you alone? A chill washed over her. She didn't recognize the handwriting. She didn't know who would leave such a message. Her neighbors rarely spoke to her except to complain about the mailboxes or laundry machines. She may have shrugged it off, thrown the note away, and moved on with her night. But then, she noticed something else. The paper wasn't new. It was slightly yellowed, the edges soft from being handled too many times. And the handwriting, though neat, carried a familiarity that pulled a long-buried memory to the surface. Daniel. Her throat tightened. No, it couldn't be. Daniel was in another state, another life, another part of the world she had promised herself she would never return to. She stared at the note until her hands trembled. She had tried so hard to build a predictable life, a quiet one, a safe one. And yet here she was, standing in the dim hallway with a piece of her past at her feet. She closed the door and locked it twice. Across the courtyard, Unit 5C's light went out. And for the first time in 3 years, Hanna slept with the curtains fully closed. Chapter 2. Echoes in the Walls. The next morning began like any other, except Hanna couldn't shake the sensation that her apartment felt unfamiliar, as if something in the air had shifted while she was sleeping, a subtle rearrangement she couldn't quite pinpoint. She made coffee. She sat at her kitchen table. She stared at her laptop without typing, but her eyes kept drifting to the note sitting beside her mug. Are you alone? She had left it unfolded, as if forcing herself to confront it. The morning light softened the paper's edges, but the words remained sharp, carved into her mind like fresh scratches. Hanna told herself she wouldn't think about Daniel. He had been gone for years, and that was intentional. She had made the choice to leave, not the other way around. She picked up the note again, turning it over. Nothing. No initial, no address, no sign of who had delivered it. She took a slow breath, folded it once, and slipped it into a drawer. Then the phone buzzed. A simple text message. Unknown. Did you sleep well? Her stomach dropped. She didn't respond. She tapped the number, expecting to find a location or an area code she recognized. Instead, it displayed only one word: private. She set the phone face down, exhaling through tight, controlled breaths. It was probably spam, random, algorithmic. She told herself anything logical she could grasp. But logic didn't explain the drawer she had opened last night. Logic didn't explain handwriting that looked so much like his. Her building's intercom crackled suddenly, making her flinch. "Hanna?" A woman's voice. "Are you home?" It took her a moment to place it. Leah, the quiet one. Hanna hesitated, then buzzed her in. She opened the door before Leah reached it. The woman looked smaller up close, wrapped in a gray sweater too big for her shoulders. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hair was tied back in a hurried knot. "Sorry to bother you," Leah said softly. I just wanted to ask if you had a moment." Hanna nodded and stepped aside. Leah entered cautiously, like someone stepping onto unfamiliar terrain. She scanned the room once, quick but deliberate, before her features softened. "I'm sorry to come unannounced," she said again. "I didn't want Mason to know I left the apartment." Hanna felt her breath catch, subtle but automatic. "Mason?" she repeated. "My husband," Leah looked down. I needed air, space. You seem like a quiet person. I thought maybe, I don't know, that it might be okay to talk." It wasn't lost on Hanna that the quietest person in the building had chosen her. She gestured toward a chair. "You can sit." Leah settled shakily, twisting her hands together. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Leah whispered, "I think someone's been watching me." Hanna's pulse skipped. Leah continued, voice trembling, "I don't know who. I keep finding things moved when I come home. Doors that weren't fully closed, lights left on that Mason swears he didn't touch." Her eyes lifted. "And sometimes I wake up at night and feel like someone is standing near the bed." Hanna swallowed hard. "And Mason doesn't believe you?" Leah gave a tiny, humorless laugh. "Mason believes I'm stressed, that I'm imagining things. He says the building is old and noisy, but I know what I feel." Hanna thought of the knock, the note, the message, the man standing at the opposite window. "You're not imagining it," Hanna said quietly. Leah's head snapped up. "Do you notice something too?" Hanna hesitated. She had never been the type to confide in strangers, but something about Leah's voice, the desperation, the fear wrapped in resignation, pulled her forward. "Last night, someone left a note at my door," she admitted. "I heard knocking, and the message wasn't comforting." Leah's fingers tightened around the edge of her sweater. "Was it threatening?" "It asked if I was alone." Leah inhaled sharply, covering her mouth. Her reaction wasn't exaggerated. It was instant and genuine. "I knew it. I knew it wasn't just me." A silence stretched between them, dense and unsettled. Finally, Leah said, "I didn't want to bother anyone, but Mason, he keeps dismissing it. He says I'm anxious, but he's changed. He's not the person I married. Some days he's calm. Other days he's something else." Something flickered in her voice. Not fear, but fatigue. Hanna leaned forward. "Do you think Mason is the one watching you?" Leah's head snapped up quickly. "No, or I don't think so. He's strict, controlling sometimes, but the watching feels different, colder." Hanna felt a chill. Leah's eyes drifted toward the window. "Sometimes I see someone in the courtyard, just standing in the shadows. When I look again, they're gone." "Have you told management?" Hanna asked. They told me to install a camera. Leah gave a hollow smile. Mason wouldn't allow it. He doesn't like electronics in the bedroom, says it ruins privacy. The irony made Hanna's skin prickle. Hanna opened her mouth to ask another question, but Leah's phone buzzed sharply. She startled, fumbling it from her sweater pocket. Her eyes widened as she read the message. Hanna watched fear drain the color from her face. "What is it?" Hanna asked gently. Leah's lips parted. Her voice was barely audible. "He asked me the same question." Hanna's body stiffened. "The same?" she repeated. Leah held the phone out with a trembling hand. On the screen, the message displayed, "Are you alone?" Hanna's breath left her in a slow, controlled exhale. Her hands curled around the edge of the table, grounding herself. "Did Mason send it?" she asked. Leah shook her head violently. "No, Mason doesn't text me. He calls. And this number..." Her voice faltered. "It's also private." A sudden clang echoed through the hallway outside, someone slamming a door. Leah flinched hard, her entire body tightening. "It's probably just a neighbor," Hanna said, though she didn't believe it fully. Leah stood up abruptly. "I should go. If Mason gets home and I'm gone..." Hanna nodded. "You can come back if you need to." Leah paused at the door, turning slightly. "Thank you, Hanna. You're the first person who didn't look at me like I'm losing my mind." Then she slipped into the hallway, closing the door quietly behind her. Hanna stood still for a long time. Her apartment hummed with silence. The refrigerator buzzed. A pipe clicked. Small, normal sounds that suddenly felt suspicious. She returned to the window and parted the curtains. The courtyard stared back, empty, quiet, washed in pale winter light. Then, in the distance, in the reflection of Unit 5C's glass, she saw a silhouette standing behind Leah. Tall, motionless, watching. She stepped back from the window quickly, heart pounding. Her phone buzzed again. The same private number. A new message. "Do you trust her?" Her hands went cold, because she suddenly wasn't sure whom the question was about. Leah or herself. Chapter 3. The mirror across the hall. Hanna didn't answer the message. She set the phone down slowly, deliberately, as if placing it too quickly might provoke someone watching. The apartment felt smaller than before, the air heavier. She told herself she wasn't going to react, wasn't going to give fear the dignity of acknowledgement. But her fingers wouldn't stop trembling. She walked into the bathroom and turned on the faucet. Cold water spilled across her palms, grounding her in sensation. She splashed some onto her face, watching her reflection drip in the mirror. The woman staring back looked tired, not just from lack of sleep, but from holding too many things inside. She dried her face with a towel and returned to the living room. Her phone screen lit up again. One new notification. But this time, it wasn't a message. It was a photograph. She froze. The image was grainy, dim, clearly taken from a distance. For a moment, she couldn't understand what she was seeing. Then her breath caught. It was her own apartment window, taken from outside, taken from the courtyard. She stepped backward instinctively, glancing toward the window, shutting the curtains in one swift motion. Enough. She picked up her phone and called the building management office. The line rang twice before a bored voice answered. "Manager's office?" "This is Hanna Carr from Unit 4B, she said, trying to keep the tension out of her voice. "I need to report someone trespassing in the courtyard. Someone's been watching me, possibly watching other tenants too." "Did you see the person?" the manager asked, tone flat, uninterested. "No," she said, "but someone sent me a photograph of my window." A long pause. Then the manager sighed. "Miss Carr, we've had a few complaints about people seeing things the past few months. We've upgraded lighting, installed new locks. The security feed hasn't shown anything unusual." "That doesn't mean nothing is happening," she said tightly. "Look," the manager continued, "we'll send someone to check the courtyard, but unless you have proof, it's probably just reflection or shadows. Happens a lot in older buildings." Hanna closed her eyes. "Right. Thank you." She hung up before her irritation slipped out. The apartment felt suffocating now. She walked toward the balcony, sliding the door open a crack to breathe in cold morning air. The light in the courtyard seemed unchanged, normal even, but the normalcy only made her more uneasy. Everything looked fine, and nothing felt fine. She retreated inside and locked the door. The hallway outside her apartment creaked suddenly. Footsteps. Slow, controlled, measured. She stood still, listening. Her front door stood only a few feet away, the peephole gleaming like a dark eye. A soft knock. Once. Then silence. Her heart stuttered. No, she wasn't doing this again. She walked to the door and checked the peephole. Nothing. Just the empty hallway stretching left and right. She exhaled shakily. Then a whisper came through the door, low, barely audible. "Hanna." Her body went rigid. She backed up 2 steps, gripping her phone. Another whisper. "You're not safe." Then the sound of footsteps retreating down the hall. She wasn't breathing until the silence settled fully. She stared at the door, at the peephole, at the handle. And then her phone buzzed again. Same private number. A new message. "She's lying to you." Her pulse hammered. A question pressed hard against her thoughts. Did she mean Leah? Or someone entirely? Chapter 4. The Man at the End of the Hall. The room felt sharper now, every shadow suddenly shaped like a warning. Hanna kept her eyes on the phone screen, reading the message again and again, hoping it would change. "Leave before he gets home." "He?" she whispered. Leah stepped closer, anxious. It has to mean Mason. They know his schedule. They know when he's out. They know when he's coming back. Hanna didn't answer immediately. Something about that felt too easy, too obvious. The messages had been vague, but not careless. Whoever sent them was deliberate with every word. "Maybe," Hanna said, "but we can't assume." Leah tightened her grip on her sleeves. Then who else would it be? Someone who has access, someone who moves quietly, someone watching both of them. Someone who left a key under a married couple's bed and took pictures of an apartment window. Someone close. "I think we should leave," Hanna said softly. "Just for now. Walk outside, be somewhere public." Leah grabbed a coat from the hook. Hanna opened the door a crack and peered into the hallway. Silent. Still. Dimly lit by the single overhead bulb that flickered every few seconds. Hanna stepped out first, scanning left, then right. Nothing moved. "Come on," she whispered. Leah followed her out, closing the door quietly behind them. Together, they walked toward the elevator at the far end of the hall. They made it 8 steps. A door opened. Not loudly, not abruptly, just the slow, dragging sound of a door that had been waiting to open. Both women froze. The door belonged to Unit 5B. No one ever seemed to come or go from 5B. Most tenants whispered that the occupant worked nights or traveled often or didn't like people. No one had seen him enough to know. Hanna glanced up. A figure stood in the doorway. A tall man, broad shoulders, dark clothes, his face obscured by shadows. He didn't move. He simply watched them. Leah gripped Hanna's arm hard enough to hurt. "Keep walking," Hanna whispered. They took a step. The man stepped out of his doorway, not threateningly, not quickly, but with purpose. "Go," Hanna said under her breath. They reached the elevator. Hanna pressed the button 3 times in quick succession as if that would make it arrive faster. Behind them, calm footsteps approached. Once, twice, then stopped. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. The women stepped inside. The man didn't follow. He stood several feet away, hands at his sides, head tilted slightly as if studying them. The doors began closing, and then Hanna saw it. Just before the doors sealed shut, a faint smile. Small, controlled, knowing. "Who was that?" Leah whispered breathlessly. "I don't know," Hanna replied, but her stomach twisted because she recognized something unsettling in his eyes. He was not afraid of them. He was not surprised by them. He was waiting for them. The elevator descended in heavy, grinding motions. Leah pulled her coat tighter around her body, shaking. "Hanna," she said quietly, "I've seen him before." Hanna turned. "Where?" "Outside," Leah whispered. "A few nights ago. I couldn't sleep. I went out to smoke on the balcony, and he was in the courtyard, just standing, not moving, just staring at the building." "Did he see you?" Leah nodded slowly. He looked up, straight at me. "Did you tell anyone?" "No," she said. "Mason would have said it was nothing." The elevator dinged again. The doors opened to the lobby. They stepped out quickly. The lobby was empty except for the security desk near the entrance. A man in a navy uniform sat behind it half asleep, watching a small television instead of the monitors beside him. Hanna approached. "Excuse me," she said sharply. The guard looked up startled. Yes?" "There's a man on the 5th floor, outside 5B. I want to know if he's a tenant here." The guard blinked slowly. 5B? That unit's vacant." Hanna felt her heart drop. "No," she said. "Someone is living there." He shook his head. "No one has signed a lease for 5B in months. No keys checked out, no tenant on file." Leah took a step back. "Then who was that man?" The guard frowned. "What man?" Hanna steadied her voice. "Tall, dark clothes, watching us." He sighed, bored again. "People wander through old buildings all the time. You probably saw a repair contractor." "At 9 at night?" Hanna asked. He shrugged. "It happens. Can you check the hallway cameras?" Hanna pressed. This made the guard shift uncomfortably. "We don't have hallway cameras on the upper floors anymore. They were removed during renovations. Only the lobby and courtyard feeds are active." Of course they were. Convenient. Too convenient. Hanna exchanged a tense glance with Leah. Someone knew exactly where the cameras didn't reach. "Ladies," the guard added with a weary sigh, "if this is a safety concern, I can file a building report. It'll go to management in the morning." Hanna exhaled. "Do that." She turned to Leah. "Let's get some air." They pushed through the glass doors and stepped outside. The streetlights cast long, distorted shadows across the pavement. A few cars passed lazily. Nothing unusual, but the stillness made Hanna uneasy. They walked to the corner in silence, stopping under the glow of a street lamp. "Hanna," Leo whispered, "what if he's the one sending the messages?" "It's possible," Hanna murmured, though uncertainty gnawed at her. "But I don't think he's working alone." "Why?" "Because he wasn't surprised to see us. He wasn't confused or curious. He acted like he expected it, like he was tracking our steps." Leah rubbed her arms. "Then someone is helping him or telling him where we are." Hanna's mind churned. Someone who lives in the building, someone with access to our floors, to our doors, to our routines, someone who knows where the cameras don't reach? A new message vibrated Hanna's phone. She checked it. Same private number. "This is your second warning." Her chest tightened. "Second?" Leo whispered. "What was the first?" Hanna murmured. Her eyes lifted slowly. Back toward the building, back toward the 5th floor window. And she finally understood. The first warning had been the photograph. The second was the man in the hallway. Someone was escalating. Someone wanted fear to grow. Someone wanted control. "There will be a third," Hanna said quietly, shoulders tense. "And I don't think we're going to like what it looks like." Chapter 5. The Third Warning. The walk back to Leah's apartment felt like moving through thick glass. Every sound was sharper than it should have been. Every passing car felt like it slowed just a little too long. Every shadow stretched in ways that didn't make sense. Leah wrapped her coat around herself as they approached the building entrance again. "We shouldn't go back inside," she whispered. "We're not," Hanna replied. "Not yet." She led them to the side of the building, where a narrow concrete path ran behind the structure toward the courtyard. It was dimly lit and lined with metal utility doors, each painted with chipped gray numbers. They stopped under a light. "I need to think," Hanna said, "and I need this space to think clearly." Leah nodded, hesitantly. "Okay." Hanna inhaled deeply, steadying herself. "We need to approach this as if it's intentional and coordinated. Someone is manipulating the situation step by step." Leah's voice trembled. "But why us?" "I don't know yet," Hanna replied. "But it's personal. Whoever orchestrated this wants us unsettled, unbalanced. They want to create dependency." "Dependency?" Leah echoed. "On who?" "On them." The realization hit both of them at the same time. Someone wanted control, not chaos. Control. Leah leaned against the wall, her breath unsteady. "Hanna, do you think the person in 5B is watching us right now?" Hanna didn't answer. Her eyes scanned the windows above them, tracing the dark rectangles one by one. Then she saw it. A curtain on the 5th floor shifted, barely. A fraction of a second, but enough. Hanna grabbed Leah's wrist. "Someone is up there." Leah's voice cracked. "What do we do?" A vibration buzzed in Hanna's pocket. Another message. She already knew who it was from. She opened it. "He is closer than you think." Her stomach pulled tight. "Leah," she said quietly, "we need to move. Now." They pulled away from the building and headed toward the courtyard. The path was narrow and quiet, shielded on both sides by tall brick walls that made their footsteps echo. Halfway through, Hanna stopped abruptly. A man stood at the opposite end. Not moving, not speaking, just standing. Leah covered her mouth with her hand. "He followed us," she whispered. Hanna's pulse hammered in her throat, but something felt wrong. The man's posture, the stillness, the way he stood perfectly centered under the courtyard light, he wasn't hiding, he wasn't chasing, he was presenting himself, deliberately. Hanna stepped in front of Leah. "Stay behind me," she whispered. They backed up slowly, but as they did, the man's head tilted slightly. Not curious, not confused, studying, like he wanted to memorize our fear. "Why is he doing this?" Leah breathed. Hanna kept her eyes locked on him. "Because he wants us to react." They continued backing up until they reached the edge of the courtyard. The man didn't move. He just watched. And then, without warning, he stepped sideways into the shadows and disappeared. Leah exhaled shakily. "We need the police." Hanna shook her head immediately. "We can't go with a vague report. No crime, no name, no cameras. They won't act." Leah pressed her back against the wall, her voice thin. "So what do we do?" Another vibration, another message. Hanna looked down. "Call the police if you want to make things worse." Her skin went cold. "He knew we were thinking it," Leah whispered. Hanna swallowed, forcing herself to stay calm. "He's anticipating our steps. He's been doing this longer than we realize." Leah was shaking. "I want to go somewhere safe." "We will," Hanna promised. "But first, I need to understand something." "Understand what?" Hanna stared at the phone. Why this man knew exactly when we stepped outside, why he knew when we were thinking of calling the police, why he's always appearing at the perfect moment. Leah's eyes widened. "You think he's listening?" Hanna stared at her phone, at the tiny microphone icon, at the permissions. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Or reading." Leah covered her mouth. "Our phones?" "Anything connected," Hanna said. "Anything with a mic, a camera, a network." Leah pulled her phone out and stared at it like it was a weapon. "How do we stop it?" Hanna forced herself to think strategically. "First, we remove the variables." She turned her phone off completely. Leah followed. Then she pointed to the far end of the courtyard. "There's a maintenance exit that leads to the alley. We'll go through there. No cameras, no main entrances." Leah nodded. They moved quickly through the courtyard, past dim lights and dying plants, toward the rusted metal door at the back corner of the building. She pushed it open. A cold gust of air hit them. The alley outside was narrow, quiet, lit only by a distant street lamp. "Stay close," Hanna said. They stepped out and stopped. A small piece of paper was taped to the brick wall beside the door. Hanna reached for it slowly. It was folded once. Her fingers trembled slightly as she opened it. A single sentence, written neatly, purposefully. "You should have stayed inside." Leah stumbled back. "Hanna, this is the third warning." Hanna's pulse thundered in her ears. Yes, it was. "And warnings escalate," she said quietly. Leah grabbed her arm. "We need to go to Mason's office. He's working late tonight. He'll know what to do." Hanna nodded without hesitation. "Good. Somewhere public, somewhere bright." They moved quickly down the alley, emerging onto a main street illuminated by traffic lights and passing cars. People walked by, talking, laughing, unaware of the storm building around the two women. For a brief moment, the normalcy steadied their breathing. They continued walking, heading toward the downtown strip where Mason's office building stood. As they approached the corner, Hanna stopped abruptly. A streetlight flickered overhead. A figure stood across the street. Dark coat, still posture, watching. Leah whispered, "It's him again." "No," Hanna said, narrowing her eyes. This time, something was different. The stance was off, the posture unfamiliar, the build slightly smaller. Hanna inhaled slowly. "There are two," she said. Leah's breath hitched. "Two?" Hanna stared hard at the figure, who remained motionless. "Yes," she whispered, "at least." Before Leah could respond, the crosswalk light turned white. A bus roared between them and the figure. When it passed, the man was gone. Not walking, not running, gone. Leah gripped Hanna's sleeve. "Let's go, now." They hurried the remaining block and entered Mason's office building. The lobby was bright, busy, full of people working late or heading out. For the first time all evening, Hanna felt a flicker of relief. They reached the security desk. "We're here to see Mason Rivers," Hanna said. The guard checked the list. "He's still in. You can take the elevator to the 12th floor." They hurried to the doors. Inside the elevator, Leah leaned against the wall. "Hanna," she whispered, "what if Mason knows something?" "What do you mean?" She swallowed. "He knows the building. He knows the maintenance schedules. He knows which cameras work." Hanna didn't respond, because she had thought it too, and she couldn't ignore it anymore. The elevator dinged. They stepped out onto the 12th floor. The office was quiet, dim. Rows of glass-walled rooms stretched down the corridor. Mason's office was at the far end. They approached slowly. Leah knocked on the door. "Mason?" she called. No answer. She tried again, louder. "Mason, it's us." Still no answer. Hanna reached for the handle. It turned, unlocked. She pushed the door open. The office lights were on. Papers on the desk. A jacket draped over the chair. A half-finished coffee. But no Mason. "Where is he?" Leah whispered. Hanna scanned the room. Something felt wrong. She walked around the desk, then stopped. A phone sat on the floor beside the chair. Not Mason's. A different phone. Its screen lit up. A new message, sent directly to it. One sentence. "They're in the office now." Leah's voice broke. "Hanna, someone knew we were coming." Hanna felt a chill run through her. Not someone. Someone's. Multiple. Watching. Tracking. Arranging. "We need to leave," she said sternly. But before they could move, a shadow passed across the frosted glass of the office door. Slowly. Deliberately. Someone was standing outside. Chapter 6. The Shadow Behind the Glass. The silhouette lingered outside the frosted glass, motionless except for the faint shift of weight that made the shadow bend slightly, as if listening. Leah held her breath. Hanna took a silent step back from the door, raising one hand to signal Leah not to move. Every muscle in her body locked into quiet readiness. The shadow didn't knock, didn't speak, didn't turn the handle. It simply stood there, waiting. Leah whispered, barely audible, "Hanna, what do we do?" Hanna's eyes remained on the distorted outline. "We stay quiet." Seconds stretched thin. The office was soundless except for the light hum of air conditioning, which suddenly felt too loud, too sharp. Hanna moved sideways toward the corner of the room, pulling Leah with her. The shadow shifted. A faint rustle as the person raised their hand. Their fingers spread on the glass. Slow. Deliberate. Tracing something. A letter? No. A number. Hanna narrowed her eyes. It was a 3. Leah's hand clamped around Hanna's arm as terror rippled through her. "Hanna, 3 warnings." "I know," Hanna whispered. The hand slid down the glass. Then the shadow stepped back. Its outline stretched and disappeared. Leah exhaled shakily. He left? Hanna didn't relax. He doesn't leave without purpose. She walked quietly toward the door and pressed her ear to the glass. Silence. No footsteps. No movement. Still, it felt wrong. Too empty. She cracked the door open a fraction of an inch. The hallway outside was dim. Empty. But Hanna could feel eyes somewhere. Someone was close, watching indirectly, maybe from around a corner or behind a reflective surface or through a darkened glass room. She shut the door again. "Hanna," Leah whispered, "we shouldn't stay here. Where is Mason?" That question had been burning through Hanna since they entered. Mason's jacket, his coffee, his half-open laptop, all signs that he had been here. Very recently. But someone else had been here too. Someone who left a phone on the floor. Someone who knew the women would arrive. Someone who messaged, "They're in the office now." Hanna scanned the office again. Then her eyes lifted to the ceiling. A small oval smoke detector blinked in the far corner. A tiny red light. "Hanna," she whispered, "does Mason have smart office equipment?" Leah frowned. "What?" "Does his building use connected security, wireless smoke detectors, smart thermostats?" "I don't know," Leah said, confused. "Why would that matter?" Hanna locked eyes with her. "Because anything network connected can be compromised." Leah covered her mouth. "They could be watching us right now?" "It's possible," Hanna said carefully. Hanna reached for her phone out of instinct, forgetting it was turned off. She cursed softly. "We need to make a decision," Hanna said. "Stay or leave?" "Leave," Leah said immediately. "We have to find Mason. We need answers." Hanna nodded. "Then we move. Quietly." They exited the office, stepping into the hallway. The 12-story building was usually buzzing with late-night workers, but tonight, it felt abandoned. Lights dimmed, desks empty. A soft ringing sound echoed faintly from another floor. Maybe a phone left on a desk. Otherwise, nothing. Their footsteps were too loud. "Where would Mason go?" Leah whispered. "He wouldn't leave his office without his keys, or his jacket, or his laptop." Leah nodded. "So he's still here. Somewhere." They reached the elevator. "It'll make too much noise," Hanna murmured. She pointed to the stairwell door. "We take the stairs." They stepped inside and let the heavy door close behind them. The stairwell smelled of concrete and faint cleaning chemicals. Their steps echoed softly. They descended to the 10th floor. Then Hanna stopped abruptly. A sound rose from below. Soft. Uneven. Breathing. Not normal breathing. Labored. Ragged. Like someone trying to stay quiet and failing. Leah froze behind her. The sound echoed again. A low groan. Human. Definitely human. "It's coming from the 10th floor," Hanna whispered. Leah gripped the railing. "Hanna, I'm scared." "I know," Hanna whispered back. "Stay behind me." They moved down the stairs, slow and silent, until they reached the 10th floor landing. The groaning sound was louder now. Close. Hanna stepped forward and gently pushed the door open. The hallway was dark except for one flickering ceiling light, and beneath it, a man lay on the floor. Leah gasped, "Mason!" They rushed forward. Mason was slumped against the wall, his shirt torn at the shoulder, a deep gash across his arm. His lip was split, and blood marked the corner of his mouth. Leah fell to her knees beside him. "Mason, can you hear me?" Mason lifted his head weakly. When he saw Leah, Relief softened his expression before pain twisted it again. Hanna, Leah, you shouldn't be here. Hanna crouched beside him. What happened? Who did this? Mason's breathing was shallow. They wanted access to the building, to the tenants. They knew everything. Where I work, where I live. Leah's voice cracked. Who are they? Mason shook his head, wincing. I don't know. But He stopped. His eyes widened. Fear surged into his expression. Hanna, he whispered hoarsely. Leah, someone has been in your apartment. Leah recoiled, trembling. No. Mason, Hanna said firmly. What exactly did you see? Mason swallowed. At first, I thought it was a break-in, but nothing was taken. Nothing was broken. Then what did they do? Hanna asked. Mason exhaled shakily. They rearranged things. Leah's breath hitched. What things? Small things, Mason whispered. Objects moved, curtains drawn differently, the kitchen light left on, the shower handle turned slightly. Hanna felt her stomach drop. That's not a crime, Mason said. It's a message. Leah shook her head violently. No, Mason, how long has this been happening? Mason looked down. A few weeks. Leah's voice shattered. Why didn't you tell me? I thought it was harmless, Mason whispered. I thought it was someone messing around, a neighbor, a maintenance worker. But tonight, they came here. His hands trembled. They wanted me to stay silent. Hanna's eyes sharpened. So they attacked you. Mason nodded slowly. And then they said something. Hanna leaned closer. What did they say? Mason looked at her with raw fear. They said you two are already in too deep. Leah clutched his arm. We need to go to the police. Mason's eyes widened suddenly. No. Why not? Hanna asked. Mason swallowed hard. Because they said if we contacted the police, his voice broke, they'd come for Leah. Leah got still. Completely still. Hanna felt every muscle in her body tighten. There was more. Mason looked directly at Hanna, and they said, you already know why. Hanna froze. She didn't know what he meant. She didn't want to know. But deep inside, something stirred. A memory. A possibility. A name. Her mind jerked away from it. Leah whispered, Hanna, what is he talking about? But Hanna didn't answer, because she wasn't sure. Because the implication terrified her. Because if Mason was right, then they weren't being hunted by strangers. They were being hunted by someone with a reason. Hanna looked down the hallway. Her stomach twisted. Someone had followed them into this building. Someone had orchestrated every step. Someone had planned the warnings. And someone was still here, watching.